Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about shooting steel. Now before you go out and buy it and start hammering away, there's a couple things you need to know about shooting steel. Before we go into the safety aspects though, we're going to talk about some pros about shooting steel. The first one being, it's a lot of fun. It gives you really good feedback. In addition to visible feedback, it gives you good audible feedback. So you don't have to keep going down range to verify whether you hit your target or not. Did we mention it's also a lot of fun? Another good thing about shooting steel targets is they're reusable. Now, paper targets are cheaper, right? But depending on what you're shooting and how much you shoot, in the long run, that steel is going to be a lot cheaper.
Good as new, a little too new.
And lastly, it's a lot of fun. So now that we got that out of the way, here's what you need to know. Distances matter. Why distance matters when you're shooting steel is depending on the caliber and the thickness of the plate, it's going to affect a couple things. The first thing being ricochet. How we mitigate that is having appropriate safety standoff distances. For low caliber like 22 long rifle or most conventional handgun rounds, you're going to want typically to be shooting that steel from 10 meters away minimum, okay? Keep that in mind, that's the minimum. Some people will feel comfortable to go out to 7 meters and shoot that, but that's not typically what you want. In fact, most manufacturers will tell you 10 or more. When it comes to most long gun cartridges, particularly high power centerfire cartridges, you want at least 50 meters. Now, what's recommended by most manufacturers when it comes to shooting steel is actually 100. Most shooters want to get a little closer than that, and up to a point, 50 is the safest that any manufacturer will recommend. Any closer than that and you're really pushing the envelope. When it comes to shotguns, it's going to really depend on what load you put in there. So typically birdshot, you're going to treat it just like your handgun calibers, right? You want at least 10. But when it comes to a high power load like a slug, you're going to want to follow that same long gun distance, which is 100 to no closer than 50. If you go closer than 50, you're doing it at your own risk. Which brings us to our next point. Angles matter. So bullets do some weird stuff when they hit things. The first one being ricochet.
What happened?
He's missing his left cheek. So we were supposed to be shooting and demonstrating frag, and we did. Look, check it out. That caught some frag. The problem is, this ended up being a ricochet video. So now you see ricochet. You don't want to be him.
Yep.
Now ricochet is when the round would impact the target and come back. Granted, it can come at different angles, and it's really not certain what it's going to do when it hits the plate. Just know that bullets do weird stuff. We've all seen that video.
Right in the side of my head.
We're not doing that anymore.
Nope, no more iron.
Nope.
The next thing we're worried about is frag, right? So fragmentation, spalling. Basically, it's when the round impacts and disintegrates. All of that coat's got to go somewhere, right? So you can have a jacket come back at you. You can have bullet fragments come back at you. It's not stuff that you want in your eyes or in your skin for that matter. We've actually seen ricochet and frag hit somebody hard enough to actually embed into them permanently. Think of it like a small hand grenade going off at the point of impact. You don't really know where it's going to hit. For that reason, you may have been lucky up until now, but now you might actually catch something. I've been cut with frag myself depending on how the plate was angled. So frag is something that you really want to watch out for. For that reason, how you angle your plate's really going to matter. When you're firing your steel head on, meaning straight on, straight impact, particularly if your plate gets cratered and ends up hitting one of those divots, it's anybody's game where that jacket will rest. To mitigate that, some shooters will actually angle the steel. And typically you don't want to angle it more than 45 degrees. You want it usually to be able to hit somewhat of a flat surface to disintegrate that round. The more angled that plate is, the more likely it is to skip. And sometimes that might actually be the desired effect. You'll often see shooters angle the plate up to a 45-degree angle versus hitting it straight on. Another angle that matters is your downward tilt. Some shooters will buy steel that has a downward cant so that as the round impacts, the frag goes straight down. What that does is it creates a lot more safety when it comes to shooting steel. Downward angle makes most of the frag shoot down. So if you choose to angle your plate downward and at a 45-degree angle based off what you saw earlier, there's a couple other considerations we need to get into. But before we get into that, we got to talk about another important factor. Thickness matters. All right, so why does thickness matter? Basically, it's going to determine how well your plate's going to handle the steel, right? So the thicker the steel, the more resistant it is to the impact. If you're shooting those long boys, you're going to want some meat on them plates. For pistol calibers, this is where you'll typically see the small, thin plates. It can be anywhere up to 1/4 of an inch. That should be suitable for most handgun or small caliber plinking. But once you start getting into some serious speed with some centerfire cartridges, it's not going to be enough. Particularly if you're shooting 5.56, 7.62, 308, things of that nature, you're gonna want that 1/2 inch plate. And once you get into that 50 cal territory, the thicker the better. Particularly when you're shooting slugs, again, you want to treat it with that same respect of a long gun, right? 1/2 inch is where you want to be for that stuff. The other thing is you got to make sure it's the right hardness, right? Thickness is great, but it's got to be a hard steel, particularly with those heavy calibers. If you have 1 inch thick soft steel, for instance, all you're going to do is you're going to have a plate that's prone to cratering and warping, and that's going to cause more problems that we'll get into in a bit. You want to make sure that your steel is rated at about that AR 500 level or more. Now, just because you found the correct hardness doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe to start messing with it. Cutting down that steel shorter or reheat treating it to unbend it after it's been shot 1,000 times. When you do that, you compromise the hardness of the steel. There's certain techniques and practices that are used to get that steel to that rating, and doing anything to alter it will basically compromise it, and you cannot guarantee that it's the correct hardness anymore. Now that we're done talking with thickness, we're going to talk about our next topic. Your load matters. Ammo selection is very important when it comes to shooting steel. Now there's a reason for that. You typically want to avoid steel core or anything with armor piercing capabilities, such as armor piercing rounds or green tips for those of you that shoot 5.56. In addition to that, even shooting full metal jacket at really close ranges can damage the steel. So you want to be very careful about your ammo selection. There is an ammo type out there called frangible ammunition that's actually made for shooting steel, and it's pretty safe to do even at point blank range.
Contact rear!
Contact rear! We've shot it walking right up to the plate with no problems of splash or frag.
Out! Cover me!
It's made for that. It dissipates on contact, unlike full metal jacket, which is destroying on contact. That creates all that frag and jacket that can go anywhere. The reason why ammo selection matters is because ultimately we want to preserve the condition of the steel, which brings us to our next point. Condition matters. You don't want to be shooting steel that's damaged, cracked, pitted, cratered. The reason for that is it creates unsafe conditions. The first one being steel breaking, right? If it's cracked, throw it away, get another plate, don't keep using the same one. If it's pitted or cratered, what happens is as that round hits, instead of having something solid to hit off of and go somewhere, that cratering can actually cause that round to come right back at you, or at a different angle that you didn't intend to. So whenever you see cratering, some people will try to refinish the steel. We recommend just getting a new one altogether. And if there's a significant crater in there, you're probably shooting something too strong or too close. When you're inspecting your steel before setting it up and shooting, you want to be looking for a couple things. You want to be looking for broken welds. You want to be looking for those cracks. You want to be looking for those craters. You want to be looking for those pits. You also want to be looking for burrs or other sharp points. For this reason, we recommend that when you handle steel, you should be handling it with gloves on. You want to avoid touching it with bare skin because one, there's lead coated all over it. Even a small amount of lead in your body can actually cause a lot of problems. In addition to that, the burrs, cratering, and impacts, and even frag embedded into the wooden beams, if that's what you're using, can cause significant cuts and injuries. For that reason, wear gloves when handling steel. Another sign that your steel may be getting compromised is when it starts to bow or flex in the middle. Now, what some people recommend to do is just turn that steel around and keep shooting it, and it'll even itself back out. Depending on your steel setup, that might be realistic, but that's if your steel is cut the right way to do that, or it has a hanger that allows you to do that. If it starts to significantly bend to where you feel like it may break in the middle or compromise the angle of the Jesus.
She ran in the bushes and it got her in the face.
There's no way. Started them. Just cut it. Well, our next point is surroundings matter. So what do we mean by surroundings matter? Some people will choose to buy a plate without a hanger method or some kind of stand, and they'll choose to set it out off into the distance, probably leaned on a piece of wood or something. You don't want to put the steel surrounded by any hard objects such as rocks, boulders, or anything that can cause unintended ricochet. Same with when we put it on a target steel. We don't want to put rocks on the base to hold it even, because especially if the plate's angled downward, as the rounds hit, it might splash down and cause secondary ricochet in different directions. We want controlled surroundings. Typically this means you want to put soft soil or a safe backstop, or even use sandbags. Just fill them up, don't be lazy. Yes, a rock is easy. Sandbag takes a little manual effort, but it's a lot safer in the long run. The next thing, going back to our angles, there's been times on the range, and we've seen it happen in person, where somebody will set up multiple plates in a line and somebody decides to get a little fancy and not follow the instructions given to them and start transitioning steel. Now, if that instructor or that person did not set up the range in a way to facilitate crossfire, don't do it. That can be potentially disastrous. Same with on a flat range. If you angle that steel where the cue is, where people are in line to shoot, that can be a problem too. Speaking of flat ranges, how do we do that safely? Typically, you want to shoot steel as flat on as possible. So if you know the stages that you're setting up, try to set them up in a way that's going to minimize splash in unintended directions and minimize unsafe conditions for the shooter and spectators. Now that we got all that out of the way, the most important thing when it comes to shooting steel: always wear protection. All of it. All the time. Always. Wear all of the protection. Oh, yeah.
What the fuck is all the protection?
All of it. Eye protection is 100% a must when it comes to shooting steel. It's not enough to just wear sunglasses or just wear glasses in general. You must wear ballistic rated glasses. When it comes to frag, when it comes to splashback, or even a ricochet round that's lost a lot of force and a lot of velocity, you don't want that stuff going into your eyes. And with shooting steel, believe me, it will happen. I have left with a mouthful of lead in the past. When it comes to glasses, what are you looking for? Well, again, we're looking for ballistic rating. Look at things that are certified by the military as ballistic frames. You cannot go wrong with that. Brands such as Revision, for example. The other thing that you want to look for in a civilian capacity is maybe things that are ANSI rated or higher. Now, typically, you want to see that your frames are marked ANSI Z87. For example, these heat waves, while they also look cool, they provide ballistic protection. You don't want to just be the guy that puts on cool looking frames and doesn't think about that ballistic rating, or you're not doing yourself any favors. More so when it comes to shooting steel, particularly at different angles, you're going to want something that has wraparound capability. You want wraparounds because steel does weird things. Bullets do weird things when they hit things. Make sure you're protecting your eyes. You might not realize this, but shooting steel is also much louder. Think about it. Hard metal hitting metal. It's going to go bing really loud. That said, it is imperative that you wear ear protection. So you may want to actually consider doubling up. Some people will actually put on foam inserts and then put on their over-the-ear protection. Just because you can tolerate it while not wearing ear protection, which is pretty stupid, you definitely don't want to be doing it while shooting steel. Now here's a bonus tip. And this is stuff we've learned from first-hand experience, because quite frankly, we may or may not have followed these rules in the past. Who knows, right? It's a different life. That said, have a med kit. Anytime you're shooting, have a med kit. You're going outdoors into the wild? Well, where's the nearest hospital? Have a med kit. Going to the range? They're gonna take them a while to get to you. Have a med kit, okay? If you are training to make holes, you need to know how to plug holes. When you're shooting steel, you will get holes, okay? I cannot tell you how many times we've seen someone catch a frag right in the face. We've seen noses get cut. I've had my hands cut before. We actually had one gentleman get hit in the arm and causing a pretty serious bleed. Again, if you're following all the rules we have given you, it shouldn't happen, but bullets do weird things when they hit things. Have a freaking med kit.
Alright guys, thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you took away some information from it in regards to shooting steel and what the safe distances are. Again, there's a lot of information out there, so make sure you're doing your research before you decide to buy some steel. Some companies may not be actually selling you AR-500, so you want to make sure you actually have the proper hardness.
Yeah. We also want to take a second to say thank you to Angelus Armory. They helped us out with some frangible ammunition today. And we also want to say thank you to King Gong Targets. Look them up on Instagram. Both great guys. King Gong provided steel at the last second. Way to come through clutch. That said, we'll see you guys on the range, man. Have a good one.
Laters.
You know I'm at the part where I'm talking about size matters, right?
All right, guys. Hope you found this informational.
I hope you found this video informational.
Yeah.
You think that? Of course information is gonna be informational. It's fucking information. Right. So in addition to thickness, you want to take into consideration the hardness of the steel. Jesus.
You hear that? In thickness, you want to think about hardness.
Swing, do you want me to push you?
Wait,
You gotta hold on to the pole.
don't be a pussy.
Don't be a pussy, come on.
How many times have you heard that and yet you still tried? I can't, it hurts. Well, take a deep breath.
Yeah, you're doing it, you're doing it.
Just
This
don't
is fucking scary. Oh, fuck.
In addition to visible. I didn't hear a ding.
They're shooting.
With thick.
Are we going in on it?
Hey man, it's a group. Nobody will know. Hey, nothing's illegal right now.
So I should stop recording then?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that it's. Where's it at?
Right over there on the ridge. They're going after it. They're gonna feed it dog food.
Okay. Okay, got it. Literally talking about thickness matters right now. That's the part of the video we're at.
It's super dumb.
It's gonna be prone to catering. Did I say catering or catering? Jesus.
You hear that? In thickness, you want to think about hardness.
Okay, can we reset again?
Hey, who you calling a watermelon, bro?
Correct.
The thicker it is, the harder it is.
Oh my god.
What?
Fucking blowjob.
Is that what you meant to do?
Just fucking sitting there on the table going like this.
Hold on.
Anyway. God damn, there's no winning. Jesus.
Loose.
Is it safe to record now or?
Yeah.
He's eating the watermelon. Sorry.
I'm not doing anything.
I know, but she's fucking just over there just smirking, looking over like this. I'm like, what's going on behind?
He's eating the watermelon.
with me?
No, he's eating the
Are
watermelon.
you eeting the blowjob now?
Yeah. He's walking over with it.
Oh, let's do it right now. I want to get a serious pic. Fucking asshole.
Like,
Look. This fucking. That's not correct. Unless that's awesome. Okay. All right, moving on. Use this. All right, let's go. Resetting. Resetting. Hard reset. Okay.
Laters.